Welcome to Pioneers in Payments, where payments experts share their insights. Now, here's our host, Donna Blum.
Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Lou Carlozo from Bankadelic. Welcome, Lou.
Donna, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, Lou, to get us started, would you mind sharing with our audience a little bit about you, your background in the payments industry, and the work that you do at Bankadelic?
Glad to, Donna. I have been writing in one form or another about financial services, personal finance, investing for the last 10 years or so. And previously, in 2016, I was the managing editor at the Bank Administration Institute, which is the largest nonprofit dedicated to the banking and financial services industry. And it was there that I managed a team of about a dozen freelance writers, did a lot of writing and reporting myself, but really relevant to this conversation, started the BAI Banking Strategies podcast. I was the host, lead engineer, interviewer, did all of the editing and prep for that. Worked with a fantastic producer. I want to give a shout out to James Grady. And during the 3 or so years I did the podcast, actually a little bit shorter than that, we amassed 125,000 listens, which I thought was really incredible. And then after I left, I took a little bit of time off. I left BAI, and about 3 or 4 months later was approached by William Mills agency, which also happened to be BAI's PR agency. And they asked me to start a podcast, which I did. And that is Bankadelic. And that's where a lot of my work in the payments industry is concentrated. James Grady was also a big help because, as you may know, Donna, he served on the Fed's Fast Payments Task Force. So he really got me up to speed on what's happening in the payments industry.
Wonderful. Well, my first question for you is about what is the most notable trend that you're seeing right now in the payments industry?
That's a great question. And before I answer that, there are two people that have really been helpful to my education in payments as well, Dr. Lynn Baldwin and Casey Shear. And I have to say, Dr. Baldwin is just the master. She is one of those people that, having her on my podcast previously, it was an education and a half. And Casey also has been helpful in my learning curve. I think this is going to be a different choice, but I want to make a different choice because I'm sure you have a lot of people who participate in this who have really prescient observations. The one thing I find incredible right now is contactless payments, and also the idea that, hey, who knew? Payments can be fun. So there are new technologies emerging that are changing the payments landscape. And I'm going to give you just one example. Quantic Bank, which is based in Manhattan, they have just released a payments ring. I kid you not, a ring just like I would wear on my finger, and you walk into a coffee shop or somewhere, and instead of pulling out a card or touching an app, you just touch your ring and you're able to make a payment. I think that technology is so revolutionary. I have asked them if I can be a beta tester on it. I mean, it is out, but I want to actually try it out on a trial basis and then report back to my podcast audience to tell them, well, what is this experience like? And who knew? Payments can be fun. There's a lot of wonky stuff, obviously, that goes on behind the scenes, all very necessary, but it's a lot more fun tasting the sausage than knowing how the sausage is made. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I think additionally, and Casey really speaks well to this, right? It's this idea that payments in the United States are getting faster and faster and faster. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Maybe we can delve into that as we do the taping.
I agree. Yes, that definitely is the forward momentum is more towards instant payments. There's a lot of demand for that. I know from a consumer standpoint that, I want that. So, and I don't think I'm alone.
Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you the next question then. In terms of payments processing organizations, what do you think the greatest opportunity is for them today?
There are a lot of opportunities. And I just want to highlight something you just said, Donna, is that I know that as a consumer, right? to me, those are the magic words. I think I've mentioned that on Bankadelic podcast at least a half dozen times. The idea that in the payments industry, we sometimes forget that we make payments too every day.
Right.
And how great a world would it be if we recognized our own pain points as consumers and brought them into the industry? And so when you talk about opportunities, I think one of the biggest opportunities is to crack that riddle of speed. And I think that unfortunately in the United States, we don't quite have our act together because the regulation isn't quite there. The standardization isn't quite there. That's not really to blame anyone or to blame anything. The United States has a much bigger payments ecosystem than other parts of the world. Now, that said, I'm always looking at, well, what can technology, what can payments companies bring to the table that's able to do two things? Number one, prepare us for the day when the rails get faster and the regulation is there. And number two, get as much speed out of the system as we can. Now, if I knew the answer to how we do that, I'd start a payments company, right? But that being said, what technology succeeds at so well and excels at is this idea of identifying pain points and then working backwards from the pain point, so that what you have is a realization that you have begun to solve the problem by asking the right question. So speed, I think, is the right question, just because you and I, we're customers, right? We want that. We want that convenience. The word seamlessness, which I tend things to get overused, that's still a great word. You know, are we making the best experience possible given the environment we have?
Right. Right. Yeah, we just want it to be trouble-free and fast and fun. I think it is fun, thinking about paying with a ring. It certainly sounds like fun to me.
Yeah,
Um,
at least it's a ring and not like an earphone,
y-
right?
right. Um, so we talked about the greatest opportunities for payments processing organizations. What would you say is the greatest challenge for these organizations?
Oh my goodness, there are a lot of them. And I hope what's coming across so far is this attitude, not of blame, not of, oh, it's this person's fault or this organization's fault, but really one of just recognizing the environment that we're in. And I think one of the biggest challenges lies in terms of cybersecurity, because people who are bad actors that want to infiltrate payments technologies and payment systems, they never sleep,
Right.
they never rest. And we actually have nations, Russia, I think would be one of them, North Korea, definitely, that they have sponsored hackers that are going to try to get into these systems any way that they can. Anyone who runs the financial institution will tell you it's not only not a matter of if or when, it's how often. Hundreds, maybe thousands of attempts to breach the wall. And since payments is part of this larger system, and it's also where the money is, right?
Hmm.
That produces a lot of vulnerability from the cybersecurity side. One of the things I've talked about is the potential of redundancies, right? So it's a little bit non-payments, but it is related. Let's say a bank system goes down and being held for ransomware. Well, if you have a redundancy and a double redundancy, you can just say to the hackers, hey, have a nice day, and go back online in 5 minutes, and that redundancy is maybe coded or protected in a different way. In terms of the payments industry, I think that the danger is that hacking is not a static thing, right? So in the old days, if you wanted to rob a bank, you pick the lock, and it might take you a little bit of time to pick the lock or blow the lock off the door, right? You can bet that maybe in a week the bank would have a new lock on the door. Now they're safe for a while. The movement is startlingly in real time. So what we have is this condition where if people who are safeguarding payments and involved in making payments technology, the providers of software as a service, if they're not on top of it and they're not watching it and being vigilant on a daily, maybe even hourly basis, that's where the problems can erupt. And so it's going to take some really smart people some great CIOs out there, people who care about this and are able to sort of crack the code. And that could take time. I think it's going to be an ongoing battle.
I agree with you. I mean, it's a moving target, right? It keeps changing. So
Carl Dahlgren, who's the managing director at BAI, used a phrase I thought that was beautiful. He called it a game of whack-a-mole.
and that game can be really frustrating too. So I think that is pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
So my last question for you as we're kind of preparing to wrap up here is just in terms of advice. Like if you had to provide one piece, let's call it your silver bullet piece of advice, what would that be?
Wow. That is a fabulous question, Donna. And I'm going to touch upon something we mentioned before, because without being repetitive and redundant, but I don't know that this can be stressed enough, is to really remember that we are consumers and to think about things from the consumer's point of view, or if you're working with another business and providing platforms, to think about it from their point of view. We really have to get away from this dominant bottom line approach, right? I'm fond of saying Milton Friedman is dead, right? This idea that the company's only obligation is to create shareholder value is, that's 1971, right? We don't want shag carpets back. We don't want to be stressing the bottom line to the detriment of understanding how we walk with consumers and customers and our institutional customers every day. This is not about a one-time score. It's not about reviewing Q1, Q2, Q3 and saying, well, our business is up this much. Donna, it's all about relationships. If a person wants to be a successful entrepreneur, a successful solopreneur, a successful person in fintech, in payments fintech, whatever it is, this is about building relationships. It's about building bespoke relationships, which is a fancy British term for, that sounded more Scottish, right? It's a fancy British term for like a tailored suit, right? So if we're working, let's say, with a smaller amount of clients and we have that luxury, we're in contact with them monthly, weekly, saying, how's it going? What can we do? How can we help? We make sure that we're reaching out to consumers on the broader level and saying, hey, how's your experience? Wasn't possible 10 years ago. Personalization is absolutely possible now with artificial intelligence. And then I think as a whole, it's valuing that relationship to the point of, we talk about customer journeys. We talk about customers for life. That is going to be just like cybersecurity, maybe on the dark side of the coin. That's the bright side of the coin. We maintain that over time. We stress that. We get in lockstep with people, and that we remember we're people too. I think that that is the fantastic silver bullet, platinum bullet opportunity for people in payments.
Thank you for that. Well, Lou, before I let you go, I do want to ask you, how would our audience find out more about Bankadelic and listen to your podcasts?
Wow, thank you so much. And here I go again. Here's your incentive. You get to Bankadelic, you get to hear Dr. Baldwin and Casey Shear in episodes that I've had them on, which is one reason I'm so delighted to be here. You can go onto SoundCloud, which is a platform for various podcasts, and just look up Bankadelic, which it's B-A-N-K-A Delic. So there's this 70s funk group called Funkadelic. And that's where I got the name. I thought that's the goofiest name in the world. And I ran it by my friend Scott Mills. And he's like, no, Lou, I love that name. It's fun. So if you do that, if you Google my name, Lou Carlozo, if you look for me on LinkedIn and reach out for connection and say, how do I listen to this? I'll tell you. But the easiest way is to just go on SoundCloud.com and look up Bankadelic, and it will take you right to the archive of 85 episodes and counting right now.
Wonderful. Wow, that's impressive. Well, Lou, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and your valuable advice. I'm sure our listening audience is going to appreciate as much as I do. And I just want to say thanks for watching.
Thank you so much. And Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.